Welcome everyone to our Logan City Municipal Council meeting for today, September 19th. It is 5:30 and we're calling this meeting into order. If you want to make your way into the chambers, that'd be great so that we can get going and we don't get a lot of noise from people walking in.
I met you. It's okay.
And if you didn't have a chance to sign in, please make sure you sign in the sheet at the entrance. Thank you everyone for coming. Our first item in our agenda is usually we have people that share with us a little bit about an organization or an initiative before doing the Pledge of Allegiance. This time around, we actually asked the candidates for City Council to, if they would like to, they're not forced to, but if they would like to introduce themselves, they will have up to 90 seconds to do a quick introduction, maybe share a little bit of what they like to bring to the table if they were City Council, elected to City Council. So we're going to do this in alphabetical order, and our first candidate is our incumbent, Mark Anderson.
And I'm timing you.
We'll keep a timer for 90 seconds.
Because we've been known to talk too much.
I thought it was like mandatory, so I didn't know it was like elective. I am a native Logan resident, and I've lived in other parts of the world for 4 or 5 years, but my wife and I decided that this was the place that we wanted to be. For the last 30 years, a little bit more, we've lived in Logan, we've raised 4 children, we have raised multiple dogs and cats, and 1 lizard, not my favorite pet. Probably for the last 25 years, we've grown 2 businesses and multiple gardens as well too. We really love living here, we love being a part of the community, and that has been part of what we do with our businesses and also with our family. I've served on the City Council for 4 years, and it has been a humbling and an eye-opening experience. It's been a great opportunity, and I've been so fortunate to be able to work with the staff and with the mayor and with the City Council and learn so much about the city and about the workings of the city. The best part has been working with the City Council. I've loved working with all of you, with the mayor, and especially with the staff. It's been amazing to be able to know the staff and what they do and their jobs. Thank you all for teaching me so much about how the city works. It's truly been a great experience. I've been able to be a part of a lot of great projects and a lot of accomplishments as a member of City Council, and as I think about some of those accomplishments and the things we've done, the plaza, the compost facility, the library, the fire station, there's so many more that I can't really talk about. The best thing, and this is my last thought, the most significant thing that I felt like I've been a part of as a member of City Council was the selection of Ernesto Lopez to fill a vacant seat in council. I feel like, honestly, that is the most significant thing that I've contributed to the city so far. And I enjoy working with you. Thank you for the opportunity to serve with all of you, and I appreciate your support and your efforts to help me serve another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, we have Aaron Bennett. Aaron Bennett.
That was a quick 90 seconds.
It's the same 90 seconds we always get. Don't lie.
All right, so my name's Aaron Bennett, and I was born and raised here in Cache Valley. I am fortunate enough to have bought a home in one of the neighborhoods that I grew up in the Woodruff neighborhood. Let's see, I have 3 children. All my children are grown and moved out now. My middle child's actually coming home from hiking the Appalachian Trail tomorrow. They've been gone for 5 months. Let's see, I was homeless for 3 years. I'm a recovered alcoholic addict, and in the first 3 years of my recovery, I was homeless. And in 2009, I had a job when I was homeless, and all 3 of my children. And in 2009, I built a house with Habitat for Humanity. And as soon as I got into my house, I enrolled in Western Governors and got a bachelor's degree in information technology management. And when I completed that, I got a master's degree in business, so I have an MBA. Also in my recovery, I did extensive service work, so I have 12 or so years of service, community-based leadership service work, or service experience. When I started coming to city council meetings, I thought that there would be some parallels between the way the city council operates and the way that 12-step service operates, and I was really, really mistaken. I've seen a lot of problems since I've been here, not the least of which being, civil rights violations that are just astounding. And fortunately, there are a lot of really simple solutions to all of the problems that I've seen, really just using proven business tools, like culture building tools, code of ethics, value statement, mission statement, that sort of thing. Training for the counselors from the residents, also leadership training specifically. And the thing that I'm most excited and passionate about is community empowerment. There are a lot of community interest groups that have all of the solutions.
I'll let you go ahead and wrap up.
And all of the great ideas.
Time's up.
And I would like to open up City Hall and also the library and invite all of these community groups to come in, and we can all work together to make Logan a better place for everyone. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Next up, we have Mike Johnson.
My name is Mike Johnson. I want to thank the council for giving us a chance, today to introduce ourselves. Like I said, Mike Johnson. I grew up in Utah, so just over the hill. I usually say north of Ogden, but I try not to associate with Ogden too much. Moved out to Logan to go to Utah State about 13 years ago. Quickly fell in love with Logan. My mother hates it and always wants me to come home, but I always tell her that Logan is forever my home and I'm never leaving. It's a beautiful place and I love it here. I've really learned to love this city and it's home, and I love it with all my heart. I own a small business doing photo and video production, so mostly small business advertising for other businesses, which is really how I got my start being involved in the community, was just through meeting other businesses and attending events and working with all the great people who own businesses and families and those individuals in our neighborhoods. I have a wife and one child. He's 3.5 years old, and he's a terror, as most 3.5-year-olds are. But we love him. His name's Jack. No cats, no, well, I have a cat, but we don't claim it. We have chickens. We have 7 chickens. I'm more of a chicken person because they are low maintenance. So the reason that I'm running for city council is I feel like there's a lot of growth issues and a lot of changes that are happening right now, and I think there's a lot of housing affordability and housing access issues that we need to make sure that we're addressing. We're going to see a lot of growth over the next 20, 30 years, and I think if we focus that growth well, we can keep Logan as the place that we know and love while also accommodating all the people who want to be able to live here and buy homes here. So that's one of the big reasons I'm running. I've really enjoyed campaigning so far. Everyone told me it'd be the worst thing I ever did, but it's really been great being able to meet everyone in the city and all the city staff and meet the current council and get to work with them a little bit. And it's been a wonderful opportunity. And thanks again for letting me come and talk for a few minutes.
Time's up. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Next up, we have Katie Lee Colvin. I don't see Katie Lee.
Yeah, I don't see her.
All right. Next up, Joe Needham.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Joe Needham, and I am born and raised in Logan, Utah. I see myself as a complete city boy. I grew up in the downtown area. I live there today, and so I'm definitely, that's where my greatest experience comes from in that. At a young age, I wanted to be an architect, but that didn't turn out.
You got smart.
Yeah, well, at age 13, I got a job as a goldsmith and a jeweler, and I started my business ventures into that. I have 4 kids and a beautiful wife, Jane Gradage Needham, and we've been married for 19 years. But along with that has come a lot of adventures. I have owned and managed multiple businesses. I currently today have a jewelry manufacturing company where we sell jewelry across the nation. And let's see, my favorite out-of-print books is one is called Napoleon III and the Rebuilding of Paris. That's a book I've always found fascinating ever since I had it. I actually got into it because I had an art teacher recommend to understand Impressionist era, I didn't understand what Paris was at the time. And but my second favorite out-of-print book is Schwinn, The First 50 Years. And we have 16 bicycles in my house for 6 people, and there's nothing more I like than being in our town. But I have the privilege to serve on the city council. It's been 16 years since I have been there. Since then, I also served on the library board. I was the president of Downtown Alliance, and I was one of the few people that created the nonprofit of the Summer Fest when Logan City got rid of it. I am running at this time because I do see that Logan City has a lot of needs, and I will quit. But the greatest news is our housing. We have a lot of crises that are happening with apartments moving into our residential neighborhoods. So I'll address those things later. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And last but not least, Jeannie Simmons.
Good evening, council members. Good evening, residents. My name is Jeannie Simmons. I live in what I fondly call inner city Logan. I live on the almost at the corner of First North and First East. So I'm well aware of the growth and the changes that have been happening in the city. I've been on the city council for quite some time. This is my 10th year on council. I was on the planning commission prior to that. I have a distinct and overwhelming passion for this city. I want to make it the best place that it can possibly be. And I know that we have growth issues, and I know we have many affordability issues, especially since COVID. And working through those and trying to create an environment for us in the future that is as beautiful and as wonderful as we find our community today. I love working with neighborhoods. I love working with the department heads. I feel like I have, in some ways, just barely scratched the surface of what can happen. There's a lot to learn. It's not an easy city. It's very complex. We run a lot of things. And I would appreciate your vote because I feel like I'm not done yet, and I would like to continue working for the city citizens and for the city of Logan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. And thank you, everyone that was able to come and share about your candidacy. Just a reminder that the general election will be, if I remember right, November 21st. Yeah, November 21st, a little bit later than usual. And you should expect your ballots to come sometime in early November in the mail. And so please don't forget to vote. Now, our Pledge of Allegiance. Amy Anderson, our Vice Chair, will lead us.
I want to sit down.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is the approval of our agenda and our acceptance of the minutes for our last meeting.
I would move acceptance of the minutes and approval of tonight's agenda.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All against, please say nay. Our agenda is approved for tonight. Next up, just a reminder that our municipal council meetings usually happen on the first and the third Tuesdays of the month, with very rare exceptions, usually one in July and one in December, when we just have one meeting. And they're at 5:30 p.m. And our next meeting will be on October 3rd. Now is the time for anybody that wishes to address the council or the mayor on items that are not on the agenda for tonight. So if you'd like to address the council or the mayor on items that are not on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I am aware that there is potentially a group of neighbors from part of the city that are here, and I believe I've asked one of the person organizing to have are here in support of this person that will be speaking on behalf of your neighborhood. Please raise your hand. Excellent. Thank you so much for making the time to come in here and show your support as he will be presenting this information to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Logan City Council. My name is Jason Lambert. I live at 2027 Deercrest Lane in Logan, Utah with my wife Brooke and our 5 children. We're very happy to be here and grateful that our neighbors and friends could be here also. We had some difficulty getting on the agenda tonight to present our thoughts, but we are very grateful for the efforts of Councilman Lopez and Councilwoman Anderson on our behalf, so thank you. And we will meet with Pauline Hart very soon. First off, Logan City is in good hands. Our new library, the projects downtown, improvements to our roads and streets, they are noticed and appreciated, so thank you. And I believe that many of you are familiar with the challenges we face in the Deercrest neighborhood in the very far northeast corner of Logan City. I've been a resident of Logan City and been in the city for about 25 years and absolutely love it here. The Deercrest area is rapidly growing with about 100 lots, many of which are filled with new homes and a range of young families, and we love our neighborhood. Most of the streets in our neighborhood, as you might know, are private and part of an HOA that was never enforced or properly formed because of various land investors. Our private roads are not currently to code because of house placement and will be very, very difficult to bring up to city code. I have toured our neighborhood with Councilman Anderson, and we've had some good discussions. Today, we have not formed and activated an HOA. And many families that live here do not realize that they live on a private road and what this means. Some homeowners do understand the situation, but they do not want an HOA, and they may resist or fight activation of an HOA. Many of us have worked hard to gain neighborhood consensus on a path forward in organizing an HOA. We've called many neighborhood meetings. We've employed lawyers, we've incurred legal fees, and spent countless hours working toward a solution to no avail to date. The neighborhood has become a destination, with people accessing the wonderful surrounding trails and using our private streets. The city also uses our streets to access various points to do work. Our roads have not been serviced. In some cases, they are in disrepair. This is due to heavy construction, lots of building happening, and as a neighborhood, we are very concerned about having a major issue with our roads and possibly our water and sewer lines. Currently, we organize our own snow removal, we bring our garbage cans to Aspen Drive, and we appreciate the garbage collection that happens. We, as a neighborhood, we want to continue to be an open and safe destination for anyone passing through, as well as for the homes that live there. And we as a neighborhood respectfully request the following possible solutions. Number one, Logan City adopt our private roads as public. This will be very difficult to bring our current roads to meet all of the city codes. I'm familiar with the codes, I've met with some of the city. It would be very challenging in their current state. But perhaps a compromise could be reached in that regard so that perhaps city code could be amended some possible way. That's the first option. Option two, we would love to work with Logan City on a hybrid solution. The neighborhood continues to handle snow removal. We bring our garbage down for garbage collection. We can continue to do those things. Perhaps the city could commit with assisting us with road resurfacing and maintenance of the water and sewer lines, typical liability associated with public roads. We want our neighborhood to continue to be viable and passable and safe for people coming through. We're looking for a solution that works for all involved. We very much appreciate your consideration in this matter. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. I yield my time back to the council.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing these concerns with us, and we'll let the appropriate department work with you and hopefully making a recommendation to the city. Thank you. Anybody else that wishes to address the council on an agenda item, on an item that is not on the agenda for tonight?
Hi, I'm Josh Molitor from the Ellis Logan. I'm wondering if you guys have ever heard this piece. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States. This right here is a piece, this is Holy Trinity when it comes to our government. This is, whether it is a municipality, whether it is federal government or state government, this is the Holy Trinity of it. I'm having a hard time figuring out where our representatives are forgetting about this, where you are losing contact with this. Because nowhere in the Constitution have I read that we are to represent an LLC, a corporation, or shareholders. But yet, in the last 4 years, since COVID lockdown, I've observed these real estate ventures going on in a time of national crisis and the approval of a lot of things that have happened during the time of lockdown, when people weren't able to come into our, come in here and actually object to it. I'm actually appalled that a lot of these companies that you have approved, especially one in particular who I had a conversation with, last session. I'm sure you guys probably heard us talking. That was wild. Some of the stuff that came out of that man's mouth floored me, absolutely floored me. But he knows, just like he stated, he knows that he's got you in his pocket. He stated that to me outside. He's not even one of this group that I'm more concerned about. The guy that I'm concerned about is the one that is actually involved in Wall Street, that is involved in these investment companies, these property investment companies. This guy works Wall Street. This is where the funding is coming in so that they can go through and buy up all the properties and put these high density places on. And this is just subsidiary company of the main company. So it's the mall, the mall, that's a subsidiary company. And it all just trickles up to this one Wall Street company. It's atrocious that literally we've been sold out through these things. I've done a lot of investigation into this, and it's pretty appalling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to be here tonight. My name is Rayanne Hansen, and I am the chair of the Adams neighborhood. So I wanted to come and just give a quick report. Last night we held an Adams neighborhood social at the Adams Park, and I just want to let you know it was a huge success. We had probably 250 plus people there. We had games set up for a variety of activities. Volleyball, 9 square, sidewalk chalk, things like that. We were able to have great conversations with our neighbors. And one thing that really stood out to me was how much the Adams residents enjoy the Adams neighborhood. They love living there, and even a bigger piece, the city of Logan. So thank you for the work that you do in our behalf and the entire city. There were residents there, some longtime residents and some newbies, some young and some not so young. And it was a good mix of people, and we hope to make this an annual event. I especially want to thank board member Andrea Sinfield, who organized the event, and for our board members who helped make it happen. I want to thank council person Tom Jensen and Jeannie Simmons for their attendance and for their constant support of our neighborhood. We appreciate the upkeep of our beautiful park. It was in good shape, and as it always is whenever I walk through there. And to thank the city for helping to facilitate the event, the different departments and whatnot. We hope to continue building on this event with the city to help keep our historic Adams neighborhood safe and healthy for future generations. I believe it's the greatest neighborhood in the city. Sorry, Hillcrest, sorry. And thank you for the work that you do for the citizens of Logan. And I know you love Logan as much as I do. So thank you for your work.
Thanks, Rita. Thank you for your service as the neighborhood chair. We appreciate that.
Could I just comment? I was not sure what to expect, but I was overwhelmed with how successful it was and how people were mingling, old and young and, all kinds of people there. And they were all gathered. This is exactly what we ought to be doing. So thank you, Ms. Hanson, for your leadership there.
And it was a really fun evening. And I live on the outskirts of the Adams neighborhood. So I came both as an Adams resident and as a council person. It was wonderful to meet young families who are settling in Adams and love to be there. And it's the kind of experience that I hope all of our neighborhoods can have, because it showed pride, it showed joy, it just was a great good time with lemonade and cookies.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else that wishes to address the council?
Did we contribute anything to their?
Matthew Fatuesi. I'm here to just continue talking. So I just want to introduce a word to you guys. Not sure if it's in your lexicon or anything. Give you an example of it, and then tell you why the example is pretty silly. So the word I wanted to introduce to you is dogma. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the word, but it's basically a principle laid down by an authority as incontrovertible truth. So the example that I'd like to give you of that is last week when I was informed that the city government isn't really in the business of running a rental unit, which is the explanation for why we're going to just straight up sell the 2 property fronts on the plaza that's opening up instead of looking into possibly renting it and using it for funds and everything like that. I think that it's pretty silly because it's hardlining and specifically stating that we can't even conceive of breaking into those kinds of businesses and instead decide to offload it. The reason why I think that's silly is because we have a pretty good example of something even more ridiculous running right now, which is a golf course. I don't see why the city's in the business of running a golf course, and we can't imagine the possibility of running business rental or anything like that. It's these kinds of ideas that we need to start actually thinking of, like, instead of saying we're not in the business of it, consider how we can actually start doing that stuff. You're going to be your projections of the future are really indicating that you're in support of having 65% of the population being renters. So we need to start looking into infrastructure in place that will actually support renters that aren't costly or anything like that. Think of it as like the library situation where you can rent out books. So maybe something like a moving vehicles or something like that for in-town moving stuff. That way we don't have to worry about getting a rental truck, and that would offload some of the burden that we're going to be facing as renters become the majority of the population. And if you're going to be doing that, really start focusing on considering why renters are that, and if they actually are choosing to be renters or are forced into that predicament. Anyways, yeah, I don't know, just keep the word dogma in mind, and if anytime you hear something coming from somebody's mouth as an incontrovertible truth, maybe consider if that's just trying to shut down any conversation that that you're trying to generate about the topic, and start thinking outside the box as far as that dogma. They're not absolutes, it's just a word that somebody's saying and saying that it's an absolute fact. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to address the council or the mayor? Right. We will go ahead and continue with our agenda. Next up, we have reports from the mayor and staff.
Good. And I have a couple of other items that I'll add to that if you don't mind. First of all, I just wanted to thank people who participated in the Day of Service. We had 2 days that was sort of celebrating 9/11. On September 9th, over 300 volunteers improved trails, removed weeds, planted shrubs, filled hygiene kits. Sites included Boulevard Trail, Deer Fence Trail, Riverside Drive Trail, and Stewart Nature Park. And on September 16th, over 500 volunteers painted a good part of the perimeter fence around the cemetery, cleaned grounds, improved Bonneville Shoreline Trail, restained trail benches, signs, picnic tables, removed weeds from the Bridger Bike Park, and trimmed back brush on the Canyon Road Trail. So again, many organizations, individuals participated in this, local stakes, ward, neighborhood groups, Just Serve. So just a thanks to everyone who participated in that and helped make our city a better place. Another quick note, you should all have received one of these in your mail as Logan City starts October 1, Just Serving Logan citizens for garbage collection and recycling. Some schedules may change. There's a great map on this. It also gives information on a website if you need more information. So if anyone's wondering about changes in garbage collection, check on that, and that will give you some great information. And then the item I have on my report that I just wanted to let you know, Logan City just received a $4 million grant from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. This was through the bipartisan infrastructure law. There were only 25 communities throughout the United States to receive these grants, and the top amount awarded was $4 million, which we did receive. The grants ranged from $500,000 to $4 million. This will be to help with our new composting facility, which again, this is something we have to do anyway, so we appreciate staff that work together and use their initiative to identify this grant, put the work into applying for it, and we were awarded that. So that will be $4 million to help.
That's a wonderful, wonderful addition.
Exactly. So again, Emily Malik was kind of the primary writer of that grant, but the whole environmental team helped provide her the information, and I mean, what a great thing. And then we also received a $300,000 grant for forestry, tree purchase, and education. So that will help us install a number of new trees throughout the city. Again, as we have the new Logan Recreational Complex in Southwest Logan, we need a number of trees there. These can go in the park strips. Again, that we'll have a part-time seasonal employee help track tree asset management. So there's kind of some exciting things that we'll do to plant more trees in our city.
So do we have to plant them all in a year?
Oh, is that one? It's a multi-year. I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Do you remember, is it?
It's 4 years.
4 years. Okay, multi-year. I couldn't remember if it was 3
I
or
was
5.
worried we were going to have to plant all those trees in 1 year.
No, but that will, again, give us some good resource. We do have to provide some matching funds, but a lot of that can be in kind, so it's a great way to leverage those dollars.
Thousands.
All right.
Wonderful.
And that concludes my report for the evening. Anything about Saturday? Oh, yes, I guess we do. You're all invited. We will have the ribbon cutting for the Carol and Jim Law Plaza on Center Block on Saturday. That will be at 11 o'clock. Anyone is welcome to join us, but we still have a few punch list items that we'll be continuing to work on, but we will be officially opening the plaza, and come join us.
And the Pumpkin Festival.
And the Pumpkin Festival, maybe Mark wants to give details on that. Center Street will be closed for kind of a great...
That will be a lot of fun. If you want to see giant pumpkins, and we're talking 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, 1,800 pound pumpkins, they'll be lined up on Center Street. They'll be weighing them all afternoon, and a lot of other stuff as well too. Lots of kids activities, free movies. The library's coming to do story time, so it should be a great time. It should be a lot of fun.
And again, we've got just lots of things going on that day. The Gardener's Market is going on, again, with the ribbon cutting. So just come and enjoy, wander through downtown, enjoy our beautiful downtown, and walk to enjoy all these activities. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up, we have a Planning Commission update from Jeannie Simmons.
Yes, Planning Commission talked about 3 items on Thursday. The first item was a new short-term rental at 148 West, 300 South in the Woodruff neighborhood. The second item was, and wait for it, a Quick Quack car wash that will be out by the new Costco on 10th West and 10th North. So it's actually 955 West, 10th North. It'll be a little bit off of 10th West. And the last item that the Planning Commission spent most of their time on was a code amendment that has 3 parts to it. It's related to our moderate income and affordable housing provisions in our plan that we adopted. All of those will come to City Council in the next couple of weeks as a workshop, and then thereafter as a public hearing. There was quite a bit of discussion. The Planning Commission was concerned both by affordability, by availability, and also concerned about neighborhood impact. So it's kind of it's a sticky wicket in some ways, and but we will once again discuss it and make a decision from there. Thank you.
So where could
The complete amendment to us.
as presented from?
Yes, as presented. Well, they made one minor change with respect to affordability in a density bonus piece of it.
Okay.
The chair was careful to ask every member of the Planning Commission to give their statement about these issues, and so they would be recorded in the minutes. Those minutes are available under the Community Development tab on the Logan City website, under Planning Commission minutes. So,
Yeah, because I know there's lots of interest, particularly from certain neighborhoods, as to what's coming through, so letting them know where they could go to see that in advance.
well, in a nutshell, I can tell you that one piece is a recommendation to move from a limit of 3 per resident, three unrelated persons, to 4. Another part of it is to give a 25% density bonus to projects on over 3 acres or more that will designate 5% of their units as low to moderate income in a semi-permanent sort of way, like deed it that way. And the third piece of that was a redefinition of what a family is. So, and to include the fact that you can have one unrelated person living with your family. So, though that's sort of it in a nutshell.
Okay.
But like I said, it will come to us in a couple of weeks as a workshop, and the minutes should be online.
Okay, thanks, Jeannie.
And they will also be part of the agenda item. The
Yes.
minutes will be
Yes.
available when the agenda is published.
And the workshop, right?
Yep,
When
exactly.
the workshop happens, all that material will be on the city website for the council as well.
Thank you, Jeannie. Next up, we have our action items. Looks like we have 3 items for tonight. And first up, we have Resolution 23-40. Kirk, would you walk us through that?
Thanks, Ernesto. I've got the screen turned on here. Don't have that one.
Usually not first. I should have checked on this. I thought Mike would be here to coach me, but I don't want to hit the wrong button and accidentally sever the...
Did Mike
Oh.
just leave?
Wow. that
There
was
we go.
magic.
There it goes.
Jeff Thompson must be
Jeff
there.
probably heard it.
I like that. Thanks, Jeff, wherever you are.
Or Jeremy, or whomever's doing it.
He's probably back there.
Siri did it.
There you go. That's right.
A 14-year-old did it.
In his basement.
All right, we'll go ahead and launch here. So with the City of Logan and the Redevelopment Agency now having adopted the 1400 North Main Community Reinvestment Project Area, which you see the boundaries of that on the map on the screen, and with the agency now having adopted the project area budget, which has been consented to by all three taxing entities, Logan City, Cache County, and Logan City School District, the next step to making this project area operational is to provide the funding for it to make it go. So that's what's in front of you tonight, the resolution that you have, 23-40. So tonight, if you approve that resolution, you would be consenting to Logan City directing its portion of the tax increment generated within the boundaries of that project area for a time span of 20 years, having that directed to the redevelopment agency for its use to carry out the development objectives of the project area plan. So
Kurt, just to be really super clear.
Sure.
Tax increment is what is the increase between what we receive now and what will be generated by the new project.
That's
It's not
correct.
taking away any tax revenue that we currently receive.
That's true.
Thank you.
I mean, you do have some variations of tax rates from year to year, but in
Right.
essence, what you said is absolutely true.
Thank you.
Another way to restate it, I've got on the screen there, is tax increments, the increase in tax revenue. Well, no need to really do this, but if this helps too. It's the increase in property tax revenue paid to the agency resulting from new development that occurs within that boundaried area for that 20-year period. So.
Okay, thank you.
So some of the highlights of that interlocal agreement, pretty much touched on all those, or those first two bullet points. The third one is the cap, which is built into the budget, which Logan City would direct its tax increment to the agency to a cap level of $1.5 million or almost $1.6 million. So what that means is should development occur quicker, or if there's more development than the budget anticipated, let's say that occurs in year 17, and the city has directed more than, or up to the cap of the tax increment that it agreed to, then at that point in time, that revenue discontinues flowing to the agency and now flows in full measure to the city council, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So if it happens in 10 years, we're golden.
Or gold, yeah.
Yeah,
And just as a footnote, we'll be approaching Cache County next Tuesday night and Logan City School District next Tuesday night with the same sort of request for their portion of their tax increment.
Thank you.
Also in the agreement, that fourth bullet point, you are consenting to the RDA using 5% of your directed tax increment for the use of administrative purposes and 10% for housing purposes. And just a quick review for those that maybe haven't been following this too closely. That is the site plan for the Cache Valley Mall redevelopment project that has been proposed, which is really the central piece of this redevelopment project area. And uses would consist of retail, hospitality, housing, and other commercial uses.
Can we go back to the 10% for housing?
Sure.
Are there parameters on that affordability of that 10%? It can be any housing, or does the 10% for housing, is that governed by any?
It needs to be used for affordable housing.
Affordable housing, okay. Thanks for clarifying that, because it's not just any housing, it's
Yeah, good
affordable housing.
clarification.
Thank you.
a rendering of the project at the Cache Valley Mall, which has been proposed. And that's all I have, unless you have more questions or want to dive deeper on any point.
So Kirk, how many is it gonna take, that many years to build up those reserves, that money? If I understand correctly, right? The 20 years.
20 years, correct.
So if the developer finished the project in, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years, and wanted access to the promised money, they have to wait, is that correct, to receive that?
As far as the developer incentive, they only get, they only receive that incentive as they earn it. So, in other words, if the taxable value of their new development falls short of what was projected, then it's self-limiting. They will only be paid out, they'll be paid out a smaller incentive than they anticipated, because what hit the tax rolls is less than what was anticipated. I don't know if I answered your question exactly.
Maybe I need to ask a better question. How do I phrase it though?
Once the project's finished, is there an annual payment? I mean, that payment goes to the developer annually? Is that how it works?
Yeah, every spring. So what happens in essence is, okay, the project's completed, the county appraises it, the value of that new development at its higher increased value is put on the tax rolls at that higher value. The developer pays the property tax, which is due in full. That is, billed out in November, and then come the next spring, then the Cache County assessor and auditor work to distribute the money that now pertains to the agency, which you have consented directing your portion to the redevelopment agency. Then that payment is received by the agency in the spring. Once we receive it, we calculate the incentive amount that the developer has earned based upon the value currently of the project minus what it was originally, applying the tax levy, running through those numbers, and then distributing their first year of incentive pay, the first payment of their incentive. Then we repeat that process through years 2, 3,
Up to
and
20.
so on.
So-
Up to 20, right.
So there's no way for the developer to get more than what's on the schedule for the first year?
That's correct.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you.
Yeah, they can't take the money and run.
Yeah, they only get what they pay in.
Yeah,
They only get what they pay in.
they only get a portion.
So that will-
They get only a portion of pay.
Yeah, so that will go on for the 20 years of the duration.
Until the cap is hit.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions? No. Comments? This is not a public hearing, so I'll entertain a motion.
I move acceptance of resolution 23-40.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All against, please say nay. Resolution 23-40 is approved, passes. Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you.
And you'll report back to us at our next meeting then as to how the meetings with this county and the city and the school district go?
We will. Once that process with those two tax entities is complete, we're required to come back to the redevelopment agency, where you basically approve those interlocal agreement consents and essentially adopt those, and then we're done as far as the project area creation and funding. Then it would be left to bring to you, when you're acting as the redevelopment agency, the proposed development agreement between the agency and the city in this case, and the developer for your consideration of the various points of that agreement.
So I have a question that's unrelated to what we just discussed, but there's lots of chatter about when is the mall closing, what's happening to the businesses. Would you be at liberty to share with us anything that you've heard in terms of timeframes at this point in time?
Yeah, that'd probably be helpful, because when I talk to existing mall tenants in particular, there's, you know, some
Angst.
people, there's some, questions that they have and so forth. So the first part of November is when the agreement between the developer and the current property owner, that's when it, it's called, that's when they need to close upon it.
Executed.
So once that is done, then the developer who's acquiring the property anticipates that businesses would be able to continue to operate through the Christmas season, and then start winding down their business at that location, relocating and so forth, with demolition estimated to begin the first part of March.
So the mall itself is projected to stay open through the end of the year?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And we're all pretty sure that the sale will go through between the developer and the current owner?
Yeah, I mean, there's a high degree of optimism that this is going to go through. Obviously, there's still certain steps that need to be, walked, but it looks encouraging.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have a public hearing for Resolution 23-38. And it's about the transaction schedule for the solar project. Mark?
Where's your jacket?
I thought this was.
I'm like,
Well, they relaxed it at the federal level.
you're not wearing your mankini, though.
No. Let's spare us all that. Let's see. So I've brought this transaction schedule to you a few times. Incremental changes have gone each time. The major change in this particular transaction schedule is due to the IRA that the federal government passed. There's some tax incentive for the development that is available to him, but he didn't have that built into his contract and the transaction schedule. So that's been changed for their benefit. And I think I explained last time that kind of as a, I guess help us out, the developer has made some of the land available at the site for us to develop in some future fashion a battery type system that could work in conjunction with the solar panels, and that is independent of the developer of the solar panels. We could either use them or we can develop it with some other company. That's kind of the major chunks of this transaction schedule.
Why is this image up there?
Because Kirk left his garbage out.
Because that's for the next.
That's for Easter.
Oh, that's East.
Yeah.
It's coming up.
It's coming up.
coming
I was trying to figure out if you took over East.
No, I don't know what that is.
It's coming up.
He has enough headaches.
I should have brought you some pretty pictures of the solar panel.
I thought maybe we figured out a way to produce power out of wastewater.
We tried.
We should.
We tried.
There is, it's just not very cost effective.
Right. It was way too expensive at the time. I don't have any questions. I got off easy.
Yeah, no questions.
No questions? Thank you, Mark. This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on this specific item on the agenda, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
And don't all rush up at once.
Solar power, solar power.
We'll bring it back to the council.
Great to see some renewables. I would move acceptance of Resolution 23-38.
I'll second.
Being moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, please say nay. Resolution 23-38 passes. Thank you, Mark. Next up, we have a public hearing for budget adjustments, Resolution 23-39. Richard?
This is a small one this time.
Just a small one, one unusual one, 3 small ones. First is request to appropriate $20,107 for reimbursement toward street vehicle repair. Request to appropriate $21 million toward the natural gas power plant that we're planning to construct and purchase. Request to appropriate $20,444 for a fire department grant for EMS training. And lastly, a request to appropriate $40,000 for our Cigna wellness grant. So 3 small ones and then 21 million.
And just one comment, again, we mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but I mean, we have some great renewable projects like the solar project that Mark just mentioned, and this natural gas plant, which provides baseload power, is really good at sort of balancing out those variable renewables. So it'll be a great resource to allow us to kind of manage these renewables that we have in our portfolio. It'll take a couple of years to get it built with all the permitting and the
Supply chain issues.
Yeah, thanks for sending those comparisons over, Mark. That was helpful.
And I know you commented on this, Richard, but this is coming out of reserves, right, from the electrical?
It is, so it'll reduce us down to about 9 million. The other project that is on the, and our base or our target amount we'd like to maintain in that fund at all times is around 15, 16 million. So we'll drop us below, and then over time we'll build back up. There is one more project that will come forward probably to the next council meeting, is a request to appropriate reserves toward sediment removal at Second Dam. Good news is it's a little bit less than we were anticipating. Nonetheless, it's another $1 million.
But it increases the renewable. I mean, it's hydropower, so it makes that more efficient.
It's maintenance of our hydropower. We have to do it probably in greater intervals than we've been doing it.
Well, I think it's, I look at the wastewater treatment plant, I look at, the electrical projects that we're able to do because we manage our money very carefully and we keep our reserves for only the big projects, and we've set in place things that helped us not be hit by the incredible increase in the cost of power last summer. So I think that we're looking forward, but we've planned for it for a long time. So
just to make sure everybody is clear, we will drop below our target level. We have that plan to how to replenish it. It'll happen over time. And although I don't like dropping below our target levels very low, I'm comfortable with the plan that we have in place and the levels of reserves in other funds that can help kind of sustain the city as we move forward.
There you go.
And this is what we have reserves for, right?
It is.
This is what we use this type of money for.
It's the exact purpose.
It's not being pulled from some other fund that would prevent us from doing things that needed to be done as well.
because I think that the other alternative we would have would be to bond, right? And then we'd have to pay that back at some level of interest rate over time and using general fund dollars, so to speak.
Which couldn't possibly be worse timing than bonding at the peak of interest rates.
Yeah,
At least what we hope is the peak.
That's good.
Mark, I know I've asked several questions about emissions and things like that, but if you wouldn't mind sharing that this has been approved by an air study that...
We did a preliminary air study, and our target was to be able to, whatever we put in, to be able to run that anytime we want to, according to the air study. And we actually initially tried to do 15 megawatts, and they said you can't do 15 megawatts, but you can do 10. So that's kind of dictated the size, well, that and space constraints. But,
And dollar constraints.
and dollar constraints. I will say that typically coal power generation puts out about 2,200 tons of, not tons. I can't remember the numbers, but I know natural gas is just about exactly half of coal generation for emissions, so it's considerably lower. And the fact that we'll be putting on selective catalytic reduction devices, which is a scrubber, these should be just even a little bit cleaner. In fact, we have to do that to make the air study work. So these will be as clean as they possibly can be, and much cleaner than coal.
Yeah.
For sure.
Is this type of technology one that if a new catalytic thing became available, could be updated in the future? That was more efficient?
I would think so, because the SCR, selective catalytic reductors, they're kind of a separate unit that's attached to the generation exhaust stacks. So I would think if technology improved, that we could certainly retrofit if it was beneficial. I mean, I can't say that for certain, right? I'm not the designer, but in my mind and in my engineering mind, I feel like that's possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions, comments? This is a public hearing. If you would like to comment on this specific item on the agenda for tonight, please come up to the mic and state your name and your place of residence, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Dr. Gail, I live on First East in Logan. I just wanted to commend the council and the staff especially for keeping our city in good financial shape. That's really important to the members of the city. It's important for the people who are low income to make sure that they can be in a place that is not going to make it difficult for them to live. And your comment about putting out a bond would just cost us more in the long run. So I'm just wanting to say thank you to all of you for making sure that we are consistently above the fray of many cities. And I just read in the paper that Cache County Schools was considering a bond. And I'm thinking, I would like to get out of my debts. And I don't want to have my government, local governments, which have more impact per person than any other government entity. I'm thankful that the impact for living here in Logan is doable, is functional for the rest of us. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
I'm Josh Muller from Logan. Do you guys know who will be supplying the natural gas? What company will be supplying it?
There's only one.
We will buy it on the open exchange,
Okay.
or we will hedge if we feel like that makes financial sense.
Right. You know, we could offset this cost even more if we weren't pulling these RDA things. We could actually offset quite a bit more if we weren't giving a lot, back these tax RDA scams to these already wealthy developers. We could actually take quite a couple of $1 million off of that if we weren't catering to them. Thank you.
Anyone else that wishes to speak on this specific item? We'll bring it back to the council.
I don't know, I feel like being nice to Rich, so I'll move approval of resolution 23-39.
And I'll second it. Totally supportive of what we're doing here.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
But it's the future.
It is. Well,
You know,
it
it's
help-
base load power for the future.
it helps us keep our utility rates as affordable as possible. It's going to balance out a lot of those things. So it's a lot, but I think it's necessary. So
I know I asked many questions to Mark during both Light and Power meetings and the Renewable Sustainability Board. Thank you for answering all of my questions regarding emissions. How long is it going to take to break even with this thing, and
return on investment.
the return on investment? And in the end, it will, if I understand correctly, it will help us cut a little bit of the peaks of the prices of power. Maybe not all of them, because we have high demand and it keeps growing, but it will help us make a dent maybe in those times. So we can move and second it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against?
You're delayed, Tom.
All against, please say nay. Resolution 23-39 passes. That's it for our action items. Next up, we have workshop items. And first up, we have ordinance 23-31. It's related to regulating sewers and sewage disposal, presented by Isa.
Yeah.
Wow, we've got a whole team. And Tyler.
And Tyler.
Got bodyguards.
With me, good evening. With me tonight is Tyler, he's our operations manager, and Jim Harvis, he's our pre-treatment manager, and Tim Lindsay, he's our foreman for wastewater treatment, and he's the acting manager right now, wastewater treatment plant. Before we talk about the ordinance, I would like to give you a quick preview of the performance of the new wastewater treatment plant, as you can see, and where we are today after it's being completed. A year ago, we had the equipment cabin, and here we are now that the treatment is running at full capacity. And Tyler will present the water quality requirements as well as the performance of the plant. Go ahead.
Okay, well, good evening, council. So this is a quick update on where our water quality with the new plant stays. So what got this project started, for those that have not been involved with the whole thing, was the TMDL study back like in 2010. And the state gave us our new limits. You can see these new limits here in this section right down here. These are new phosphorus and ammonia limits. The current, or the old lagoons, weren't able to treat the nutrient removal of the wastewater for phosphorus and ammonia, so that initiated the plant construction, and those are the limits that we need to meet, and we are meeting them currently. So, like you said, we seeded the plant last January, we had the ribbon cutting last spring, summer, and we have been optimizing the plant ever since then. On this graph, if you can see, the blue line, that's all the wastewater coming to the treatment system, the lagoons and the plant. The orange line is just what the plant is doing. So you can see back early part of January, we were taking about almost 10 million gallons a day at the treatment plant, and the rest was going into the lagoons. So we've ramped that up, and now we've got it fully optimized, so we're treating all the wastewater that comes in to the treatment system with the new mechanical plant. There's none going to the lagoons.
Those big peaks are rainstorms, right?
Correct. So this big peak here, that was your wet, rainy March. Then you see these two, like this one, this would be your storm around Labor Day. Or the week before Labor Day.
Yeah, that one.
And so the plant's rated at 18 million gallons. We can take up to 21 gallons for a short duration, say 6, 7, 8 hours, and we can treat 21 million gallons, but the max daily is 18. So coming into the main constituents we treat, BOD is the biological, that's the stuff that we got to take out of the water, biological oxygen demand. The suspended solids, the nutrients, the phosphorus, ammonia. So this is coming in, influence coming into the plant. You can see springtime we got a little variability, then it's kind of tapered off and hovered around about 250 milligrams per liter. Coming out of our plant, we have 5 milligrams per liter non-detect in a lot of cases. So our limit's 25 on any given day. That's the max we were allowed to discharge, and we're pretty much steady all the time at about 5 or below. Occasionally you'll hit a 15.
That's awesome.
Influent CSS, this is total suspended solids, or this is the suspended matter in the wastewater. So it comes in variable depending on the weather, different events. It hovers around about that 250 mark, 2 milligrams per liter. Same limit on suspended solids of 25 milligrams per liter, and you can see that we bounce around between about 5 and 15, but the treatment plant's doing very well. We've been able to optimize it and get rid of a lot of the issues and bottlenecks we were having. So it's a big learning curve. It's a totally new treatment system to us, but we think we've got it.
What was your goal?
What
was your goal? Were you hoping to keep it that low, or is this better than you anticipated?
So, I mean, we have to make 25. That's the state limit. But yeah, we try to keep it around 5, just to be on the safe side.
That's awesome.
Then ammonia and phosphorus. The blue line up there is ammonia. So this is the crux of the new treatment plant, why we had to build it. We get in around about 15 milligrams per liter and about 3 to 5 milligrams per liter of a phosphorus. The limit for ammonia, we have 2 limits. We have a daily max and a 30-day average. So this is, you're showing us your daily, the green is the daily values of ammonia discharge, and the yellow is our limit. So you can see that most of the time we were pretty low, almost non-detecting, occasional upset at the plant. And that's partly due, that's what the other issue we're bringing forward today is the pre-treatment ordinance. Pre-treatment ordinance, we are trying to limit these upset conditions where you've got a spike in wastewater so your treatment plant can continue to operate smoothly. The 30-day average, you can see those same spikes in the come through, but we're still well under the limit. So the most stringent limit we have there is 2 milligrams per liter of ammonia during the summer. But it is seasonal, it adjusts. It goes from 3 to 2 and up to 3.5.
So Tyler, if you were to draw these graphs the way that would be ideal, would they not have any of the spikes? Or the spikes do more to environmental, like rainfall or
well, ideally, once we got the water treated, it'd be right down here, non-detect the whole time. But unforeseen, you got an industry, say, that discharges some high-strength waste, or you got a rainstorm that washes a lot of sediment into the stormwater and in the wastewater, then you'd get these spikes where you're treating a higher strength waste than typical, and so your plant's not going to be able to remove as much. But as you can see, any of these big spikes we had, if you go back, this one. So, like, you see this on the BOD, you see these big spikes here in February and March, and your plant only got a tiny bit upset, so it's running really well. So you're able to handle, this is a huge reduction. I mean, you're talking 2,000, 1,500 milligrams per liter down to the low 15.
Okay.
So that's a huge improvement of what the lagoons would have done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where were we? Then phosphorus. Phosphorus, lastly, is our, we got a mass limit, so we are giving a number of kilograms per year or kilograms per season we can discharge to the Cutler Reservoir. So regardless of if you have a high flow or low flow, you have this many kilograms of phosphorus to discharge. So in the yellow is the limit. The state has specified 11,487 kilograms. In blue, that is what we've discharged from May to October. We're discharging around about 1,500 kilograms a month. So I think by the time we get to the end of October, we got September and October to go, we'll be around 10,000. So we'll be right under that limit. And that's without the addition of alum. So we're treating everything biologically. We do have built into this treatment system alum to do chemical precipitation of phosphorus if needed. So looking right now, it looks like we will not need to do that for the time being. As growth occurs, we might have to start adding the chemical addition to precipitate out the alum.
So is that November through April last year? Or this?
So this goes,
22 to
I took
20.
data back to just January, so that took in January, February, March.
Okay.
So it's shorter, so it doesn't have the full data. It will be closer, but I think it will be much lower than during the summer,
Okay.
just because we have lower flows during the winter typically. Then the next item we're doing is pre-treatment. So pre-treatment local limits. We have to establish local limits for all the industries that discharge wastewater into our system to protect the treatment system. The treatment system is only able to handle as much as it can. So our current local limits are based on the lagoons, what the lagoons could have handled. So right now, we are in the process of developing new local limits for the new treatment plant. So it's kind of the process I've got outlined up here is we've started sampling, and we do system-wide sampling. So we sample up in the neighborhoods, sample industries, some commercial businesses. So we kind of know which each individual user, how much wastewater and what strength of wastewater they're contributing to the system. Then once we got that sampling done, that'll be this fall. We'll do the data down, then we'll look at local limits. That's the overall how much the plant can handle. Then once we've set that total limit, we will allocate to different entities. Like you got so much you can handle. You can give so much to the residential portion, the citizens, so much to commercial industries, so much to big industries, so much to growth. We will allocate that. We've got to hire a consultant that's helping us with this study. We'll allocate those the best we can. Then we'll set surcharge limits or fines where we can make sure we protect the city system and the treatment system by being able to monitor and levy fines as needed to make sure people stay within the limits we establish. So that is it, pre-treatment in a nutshell. Jim and Issa have some more. We have the ordinance that we're
So
discussing
Tyler, can
tonight.
I ask another question?
Sure.
So fines are fine, but fines happen after they've exceeded the limits. How do you make them not do it in the first place?
So we do sample all industries quarterly, some up to every other month. So you do this enough and make it stringent enough that they know that it's gonna hurt the pocketbook. That if they do it, so they don't.
And how, I mean, we do it to maximize the functioning of the treatment plant, correct?
Yeah.
But does extra damage the treatment plant?
Depending on what happens. So if you had an industry that discharged something that was toxic to the biological process in the treatment plant, that could potentially, harm the treatment plant, cause a pass-through, then we would be out of compliance with our state permit.
Okay.
And so you want to be able to pass whatever fines or punishment the state levies against us due to their non-compliance back to them.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That makes sense.
And just to broaden what Tyler's talked about, and our pre-treatment program, we cover not just Logan City, but also the 6 cities connected to our sewer area. So between all of those 7 cities, we actually regulate about 500 businesses. That ranges from large industry all the way down to restaurants, car washes, and garages, right? However, we do focus mostly upon 35 industries. They are our significant industries, and so they are significant users. They have the greatest potential to have an impact on our plant, either by their high-strength waste or by just the amount of water that they use in a day.
Okay.
And so we kind of tend to focus on those 35. However, we do check restaurants, we do check garages, just to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to as well. So,
Go ahead.
I can talk a little bit more about pre-treatment and what we try and do. And part of pre-treatment is that we try and be fair and equitable to all these industries as they discharge. And, most of them have incidences of polluting too much on occasion. And at that point, we find them in violation and we increase our sampling. And typically that takes care of nearly all of those violations. That increase in sampling, they have to pay for the sampling, they have to pay for the lab analysis. So there is an increase of cost. And typically that takes care of most violations within the city, within our program. The pretreatment program, we are also regulated by the state of Utah. The state of Utah, they come every few years and they review our program to make sure we are being fair and equitable, but also that we are being stringent enough as well. And so they come and look at our program, they look at how we have handled industries in the past to make sure that we handled it correctly. Occasionally, every 5 or 6 years, they will also look at our ordinance to make sure our ordinance is up to date with state standards, with state and EPA standards. Last year, we had the state of Utah Division of Water Quality come and they reviewed our program and they reviewed our ordinance, and they found a few, I think there are 8 or 9 changes that we are proposing, and these are changes that they either required or strongly recommended to us to change. And so we took those changes and we modified the ordinance as is. You should have seen it in that attachment that came to you. All of those changes, except for one, were ones that were recommended or required by the state of Utah. The one that was not has to do with administrative fines. Currently, we have the ability to fine an industry. This is in section 1312-280 F1 if you're interested. That's where we are able to levy fines based on violations and the nature of the violation. Currently, we are able to fine a violator up to $1,000 a day per violation, and so it can add up pretty quickly with some violations. Just for the record, I have been doing pretreatment for 20 years, and we have only levied one fine in all that 20 years. Typically, most violations wrap up pretty quickly with a correspondence and with meeting with them, and also with increasing sampling and sampling fees. So this is not something we have to use very often, but it does give our program the teeth that we need to use upon occasion. So the one addition that wasn't recommended or required by the state, but we feel is needed, is that next section, 1312-280 F2. This allows us to further fine someone who is found to be a chronic violator. And in the case of a chronic violator, we can go beyond that $1,000 per day per violation. It allows us to go up to $25,000 per day per violation.
So the blue is new and the red is, can you explain the color difference?
Yeah. Blue is an addition or a change. There are some red. Red is a deletion there within that.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the major change, I guess you would say, that we are proposing at this time. We have also sent these changes to the state of Utah for their blessing as well, based on their reaction, and then we will bring it back to you again for your final vote and whatnot. Any questions, I guess?
Were you surprised at 9 changes?
No.
Okay.
In 2017, we had to do a major overhaul of our ordinance. It was behind, and so at that point we did a major changes, major modifications and additions, and it brought us up to that speed. I mean, that was 6 years ago. So 9 changes in that amount of time is not a big thing. Most of the changes were just broadening definitions or just kind of refining definitions for the most part.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So the multiple violations over a given time period, that's variable depending on,
Yes, it's subject to our
to ESA the king deciding
yes,
that it's
that's up to
been-
ESA to decide.
Director.
So, yes.
Do you think we need to define that a little bit more?
When I looked at this, I thought this is similar to like the vexatious requester in the grandma law. That it's kind of a case-by-case analysis. We're going to look at the gravity of the offense, how many times it happens, and so I think we're okay with this.
Okay, because it is a little squishy.
It is a little squishy, but I think we need that flexibility to apply it.
And is there an appeals process if they disagree that it has?
sure. Yes.
Where is that outlined?
I'm not sure exactly what section, but we usually have steps that we take before we find them.
Okay.
And through those steps, we send them notice of violation. And then we ask them to come show cause hearing. After the show cause hearing, we then, we follow that process.
Okay, thanks.
So we ask you to consider approval of the second meeting of October.
Okay.
We're still working with the state in case they have any comments. We will then be able to include that and bring it back to you, but we don't think they will have any comments.
So if there are any changes, will you send that to us for the first meeting if you
Yes.
have them?
Yeah, we'll let you know. And then we will probably again in 2 years change our limits based on the study that Tyler suggested, the pretreatment limit study. If there are new limits, which we think there will be a new limits beneficial to the industries, we will probably update this, not the entire ordinance, but just the limit section.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Just so you understand, we had one business that dumped 10,000 pounds of butter on our wastewater treatment plant. And the effects was quite dramatic because we had filters and things that we had to make sure we maintain. And so that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have these businesses stay within compliance, is because they can hamper the treatment process, because the plant's basically a living organism. And if you don't treat it right, it won't perform like you want it to.
Too much cholesterol.
So,
You gotta go put the stent in, or.
Yeah.
And it also protects the collection system as well. And we're not getting the fat buildups or the other things, noxious fumes into the sewer as well. And you asked about the appealing the fine. So this one industry that we did fine a few years ago, we did meet with them. We proposed what we thought was a fair fine, and they gave us their side of the story. And we worked with them, and actually, they said that they had a treatment plan, and they had asked if they could use some of the funds to go towards treatment. And we said that seems fair. We put them on a compliance schedule to meet that goal, and we held almost 75–80% of the money in abeyance and allowed them to use that money for treatment. And so there was a much smaller fine than we had originally proposed.
But ultimately, the plant was healthier because of.
Correct. And it definitely got their attention.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
I ask a question? What was his name?
Tim Lindsay.
All right, thank you.
I think it's amazing that it was on time, on budget, and it works just really well. It's wonderful.
That's amazing.
Thank you for everything that you guys do.
Next up.
Couldn't be a city without them.
True, that is true.
That's exactly
We
right.
take care of other cities as well, too.
Yeah, I was saying the other cities surrounding us.
Yeah.
Next up, we have our last workshop item, budget adjustments, resolution 23-42. Rich looks like he is ready.
Rich is ready.
3 grant-like items, all were mostly grant-ish. First is a $15,000 grant for EMS supplies, one that we receive each year. Next is request to appropriate $96,601 for dispatch 911 dispatch grant from the state. This one is a little bit unusual. I think the grand total is around $160,000. We budgeted for approximately half of that as part of the original adopted budget. And so this is the remainder that brings it up. The reason is we kind of hedge a little bit. This is not exactly required to be distributed to cities, but it's practice. And so we don't want to budget for the entire thing as part of the original adopted budget for fear if it's ever pulled away, we would have a big hole to fill. So with the 75 that was budgeted in their budget, this is the total amount. The last one is an $150,000 grant from the state of Utah to construct a bridge at Trapper Park for the Parks and Rec Department.
That won't pay for a very big bridge.
Enormous.
Well, we also have to match it. Like I say, Rasakina couldn't be here, but we do have to match that.
Okay.
$300,000 bridge.
Okay.
But once we get across the river, then we can start working on the trail system on the other side in the, you know, the open space area.
The meat in the middle.
So. Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that, the staff, Russ and his staff at the last minute, they're like, well, we're not sure we'll get that, but let's fill out, let's fill out the application and go for it, because we have to build the bridge at some point anyway. And they received it, so good for them.
Great.
It's wonderful.
I am astounded at the amount of grants that they go find.
We have leveraged a lot of
So much money.
funding, yeah.
Yep.
It's very commendable.
Excellent. Thank you, Rich. Any other considerations?
Yes. So,
Yes.
I saw you reaching for the gavel.
I
was reaching for the pen.
Touch the gavel.
So, it was great to hear Rayanne give an update on Adam. So I'm just suggesting perhaps we could invite our other neighborhood chairs to come either maybe annually or biannually and just give us an update on what's going on in their neighborhood. I know many of us get their newsletters, but that might be a nice thing to share. If they have an event or even if it's just on a regular basis, to have one of those neighborhood chairs come.
And one thing we're actually setting up a date right now for October. We haven't had all the neighborhood chairs meet together for quite some time, and we're going to try and re-implement that again, just so they can share ideas, make sure they know, for instance, for the Adams event, we have budgeted through community development that each neighborhood can spend up to $500 a year. They have to get it pre-approved, but on an event for their neighborhood or on something they'd like to do. And that's how the Adams neighborhood chose to spend their money, which I thought was a great idea.
So they spent way more than that.
Oh, well, their budget is, from the city, is $500.
I know. People decided they wanted something, and so they paid for it.
That's wonderful.
And it is wonderful. But I do think that we also will have to, I heard a lot about some hurdles that were fairly insurmountable at the end of the meeting, just talking about different things. And I think we should probably have a discussion about once I have the list of the hurdles, I'd like to have a discussion about that. It was, bonds and insurance and, pavilion rentals and.
Well, we waived pavilion rentals. We did that, but again, risk management, we're trying to,
I know.
protect the city from.
But I think it's a conversation that should be had, just so that, and it might be one that you have with the group of leaders so that they all understand what the parameters are before they get excited about a particular particular piece of their party.
Would you be inviting council members to come to that meeting as well?
Would you like us to, again, Guess we can notice it as a public meeting.
If we're available.
Try to. Okay.
Yep, that'd be
I
great.
will do that.
I mean, since we all have a relationship with one or more of the neighborhoods.
Again, Teresa had sent out a doodle poll, and I think she's heard back from quite a few neighborhood chairs, but not all of them. So we don't have a date set, but there's several in, I think, mid to late October that.
Okay.
I think, though, that this is a great leap forward, and I appreciate the mayor and administration for the support, but this is a great leap forward from what we've kind of experienced. We built, I think Wilson and others have done some good things, but we're kind of stepping it up. The game is up, and people are identifying, as a neighborhood, and I think that that's a big thing. And putting some money into it is a good investment in our community esprit de corps, if you will.
And again, we've got at least one kind of new neighborhood chair. I think it would be great for her to, and then again, we've got some that are very experienced, some that are doing, just, so I feel like, again, our neighborhood chairs are doing a great job right now, so appreciate that.
So that was number one.
Okay.
Oh, no, your 3 minutes are up.
My 3 minutes are up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give people an update. As you may or may not know, I'm serving right now as the chair for the Bear River Local Homeless Council. We are underway with updating the strategic plan for the Bear River area, which is not just Cache, but also includes Box Elder and Rich, to be in compliance with the new state strategic plan on homelessness. So if anyone is interested in learning more about what we're doing, we do have monthly meetings. You can just email me and I can make sure that you're invited to those.
Do you have a website with that, or?
Yeah.
No, or you'll just have to send it to me.
Sorry.
Okay.
But one of the other things that's come up is that there was state legislation that there's now a code blue, which is required. So when the temperature drops below a certain temperature, counties of a certain size, of which Cache County is one, are supposed to integrate into their emergency management plan the code blue plan. So the LHC is currently working with Will Lusk here in the county and with Box Elder just to make sure that that's in place, because there are certain things that we as a county need to provide when the temperature drops below 15 degrees. It includes opening up, so for example, the warming center, which may or may not have a limit based on a conditional use permit, that would be lifted. The only thing that would hold in place would be any fire department restrictions to the number of people in a building. There's a requirement to provide outreach, so that if the temperature is below a certain degree, that you have to provide clothing or warm blankets for people if they choose to not avail themselves of shelter. So there's some things that are going on with that. October is supposed to be when the county has all of that in place as part of their emergency plan, but just to kind of make people aware that we are working on integrating that into emergency response. So Chief will probably be talking with you and also with Chief Hainig about that as well, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So that, and then I just had a question, which I'm sure will come up related to the Deer Crest presentation, but like what would the city's cost be if we took on their private roads? And then I know we probably have about between 8 and 10% of all roads in the city are private, but just.
And again, Paul just reached, we invited him to reach out to Paul Lindhart, who can maybe run some numbers. I don't know if you recall, we had the Country Manor area come to us. We've had several other areas. It just...
Temple Avenue, we did their own improvements and then they were accepted.
But they met the requirements, yeah.
Well, in Country Manor, you were on council.
Yeah, we did not agree to accept the roads.
Because, well, we didn't accept the roads, the sewer, or the water, because all of it was both aged and not up to our current codes. And we said if they did do those things, then they could come back. But I think that we have to be careful to not assume a liability greater than we would have assumed had it all been put in by us to begin with.
Right, and obviously those, I mean, we've changed the code now, so those type of developments are no longer allowed, but again, it's a very big issue.
A homeowner association is not allowed anymore.
No, they have a homeowners association that's not informed. They have the governing documents for one, but the association itself has never collected any reserves or any funding.
Because these things have nothing but trouble through the years.
Right, and we eliminated them, I don't know how long ago, but there are some out there. Again, the developer sort of developed the property. I think I'd have to find the history. It seems like there was a bankruptcy. I mean, it's just
There's a lot of problems.
been multiple owners, and
It's hard. It's really hard.
it's hard. But the infrastructure was put in. I think a lot of the residents bought their lots not really knowing the history. So it's a tough situation.
There is clearly a cost associated with taking on the repair and maintenance of those roads. So is that something that Paul would be able to identify? The true dollar value?
Was it Paul or Mark Mielson that came up with a number for Country Manor?
It was Paul.
Was it Paul?
Yeah.
And they just simply decided they weren't willing to come up with that amount, so nothing happened there.
I believe this Deer Crest group had that figure. That's what they even stated, that it's just too much for them to do. So they want somebody to compromise, and that's the problem. We're passing that cost on
to everybody,
other citizens.
To the taxpayers. And again, if you do it for one, then, I mean, we try to be careful about setting precedent in the city because we try and treat people fairly, so.
I think we came up with a number for them 2 years ago when we discussed it before, so.
It would be 6 zeros followed by any number of digits. Or any number of digits followed by 6 zeros.
Preceded by. The 6 digits preceded by a number.
Yeah.
So, okay, that was my list. Thank you for indulging me.
Anyone else? This meeting is adjourned.
All right, see you
Only
Saturday.
because we weren't at 7:15 yet. I was watching the time. Yes, of course.
I got to charge my